Happy Sunday, everyone. It's now Sunday, the 1st of November, 2020. And what a year it's been for so many people. It's been good and it's been bad. It's been indifferent for many. It's been bad for a lot of people, mainly who deserve it. That sounds very harsh. But yes, indeed it has, because these are the people who put their faith in the government and who put their faith in the mainstream media and who put their faith in all the rest of it. And, for those of us out here on the fringes and out here beyond the horizon, sure, we always knew the government were liars anyway. We always knew that the mainstream media were liars. They weren't always so bad. RTE and the Irish Times, until relatively recently, could be trusted upon for accuracy and balance and fairness, but not since Varadkar waltzed into the role of Taoiseach. No. From that point onwards, it just became kind of a hagiography of how wonderful Varadkar is, despite all of the glaring inadequacies which he has relentlessly displayed since actually before he became Taoiseach. So, this deals with the issue of the far right. Ireland apparently has a rising far right. Yes, the far right in Ireland. This is something that our friends in the woke scene refer to as the alt-shite in their wit. The alt-shite. It must have taken them many soy lattes to dream up that one. The alt-shite. It's so clever and so witty. But it's interesting that this group of the far right has emerged. Considering that these people who are supposedly the far right are just people sitting at home on their computers talking into microphones. No, we're the big threat now, apparently. We're the ones who are going to, we're the reincarnation of the Ku Klux Klan, or we're the second Holocaust, or all of these various different things. And that the mainstream and the establishment is using such childish and inane terms as the far right and the alt-shite, whatever, shows how desperate they've become. It's also terribly primitive and terribly binary to refer to the people who are really a very, very fragmented and disparate group of people who the only thing that we have in common is that we're challenging the establishment narrative. So, for example, I'm a gay man. I'm very open about that. I'm very unapologetic about that. So how does that make me fit into being right-wing? Well, obviously, any objective assessment of it says that it doesn't. I'm in favour of a woman's right to choose. I've always been in favour of allowing abortion on demand. That's cognizant of the fact that abortion is a tragedy. Abortion is always a tragedy. It's as much a tragedy for the mother as it is for the unborn baby. Of course, it's a tragedy, abortion is. But women have been ending pregnancy since the beginning of time. They're not going to stop because you make it illegal. Making things illegal in a matter of personal choice never works, and as long as a woman is pregnant and she has an unborn baby inside her, well, then she's in charge of her own body. She's the decision maker. Whatever the government come out with, whatever anybody else decides or feels is the case, the reality is that a woman who has a baby inside her has to, she's in charge. There's nobody else in charge. So from my own point of view of freedom of choice and people not having the government intrude in every aspect of their lives, of course I'm in favour of allowing women to choose to end a pregnancy if they want to do so. But it has to be an informed choice. And what I mean by that, I don't mean these terrible restrictions put upon women in certain jurisdictions in the US where they're made watch videos and all the rest of it. What I mean is that a woman should not be pressurised into either having an abortion or not having an abortion. It should be a freely made and informed decision that the woman makes. There's another obstetric issue with abortion, and it is that the further a woman is into gestation, the more traumatic an abortion is. Because I'm very well aware of how abortion works. Abortion isn't like having a spot squeezed on your face. Abortion is a serious thing, and it's serious at the start of gestation, but it is arguably more serious as the term goes on. So we need to be very, very objective about abortion and realise exactly what it is and realise exactly the ramifications of it. When abortion was legalised in Ireland, a lot of people, myself included, were very shocked and angered at the conduct of the establishment, who were celebrating this in the way that you'd celebrate a St. Patrick's Day parade. Abortion's a tragedy. And what these people were doing was effectively invoking a death cult around abortion. Abortion is not something to be happy about. Ever is it something to be happy about. I can say that comfortably from the point of view of being so rigidly pro-choice as I am, and so consistently pro-choice as I am. I do it with a balanced view of the fact that when a woman chooses to end a pregnancy, it's a sad event. Having said that, though, it has to be her own decision. So you have situations in more primitive countries where girls who are 8 or 9 have been raped and find themselves pregnant. Under no circumstances, it's an abuse to make a girl continue with pregnancy like that. It's a positive abuse. It's an atrocity to make a child carry a baby to term. And the notion that there's any debate about it, or that we should be umming and ahhing about whether or not a child in that situation should end a pregnancy. No, there's no question about it. The pregnancy should be ended immediately. Quite aside from the fact that a child of 8 or 9 who's been made pregnant, because there are certain cultures out there where rape is seen as acceptable. Whether or not we import those cultures into Ireland is another issue altogether, and it seems that we are doing so. But having said that, there are cultures out there. There are cultures and groups of people out there where there is an endemic rape culture. It's not in Ireland. It's, there isn't an endemic rape culture in Ireland. It's not indigenous here. But we seem to be committed to importing people who have come from that background. Let's be clear about it. Let's be clear about it. Many parts of sub-Saharan Africa have terrible, terrible trouble with rape. It happens in many other more primitive places as well. Rape is endemic in parts of Africa. Absolutely endemic. Of course now, all of our woke friends in the mainstream aren't going to tell us that. Anybody who's been to sub-Saharan Africa or places like that will tell you, I remember talking to a nun. I talked to a nun in a hotel in Dublin, and, I said, now this may shock you, sister. Go on, she said. I said, I'm in favour of a woman's right to choose. She said, so am I. I said, you're a nun. She said, so what? She said, I worked in Africa for years. She said, after 1 week in Africa, I was pro-choice. I said, what did you do? She said, I was a doctor. Oh, I said, what did you specialise in? And she laughed when I said that. The nun laughed at me when I said, what did you specialise in? She said, in Africa, a doctor does everything. I said, did you perform abortions? Many, she said. Many abortions, she said. Because as a woman, I could not have lived with my conscience with what I saw. So that's not, you're not hearing that from Rethink Ireland. Oh, let's talk about diversity as our strength. No, I don't want people imported into my country who come from a rape culture. No, I don't want that, thanks. No, I want them kept out. I want them kept out of my country. If they're going to be bringing in an ethos of rape with them, I want them kept out. Quite aside from protecting our women, and it's extremely important. We've seen in the papers this year, they reluctantly, very, very reluctantly admitted the fact that an elderly woman with dementia in some goddamn cesspit of an Irish nursing home got raped by a man from sub-Saharan Africa. And the Irish Times didn't identify him. It was up to the prole newspapers to do that. It was up to the tabloids to identify the fact that the rapist was from sub-Saharan Africa, an elderly woman with dementia. Her family have said she's deeply, deeply traumatised by this, as one would be. No. But diversity is our strength. And anybody who speaks out about importing people from cultures like that, oh no, we're the far right. We're the far right. I have wandered off topic, I suppose. I suppose the topic was that this group has emerged in Ireland. We didn't do it. It was done for us by the mainstream, the far right. The far right. These bogeymen who come along and spoil everything. We come into these woke, over-subsidised, crooked NGOs telling them the truth about things. Oh, we're at the far right. We refuse to wear masks in shops. Oh, that makes us far right. We refuse to believe that there's 57 genders, that you can decide what gender you are, depending on the side of the bed you got out on. Funnily enough, I'm still stuck in this paradigm where there's 2 genders. Sorry, guys. That probably that makes me far right. Probably that makes me far right by their definition, But we have to live with it. And the great thing about being out here on kind of out on the fringes is, first of all of us middle-aged farties, all of us crusties out here. We're the new rebels. Whatever happened to the kids being rebels? The kids being in their late teens or their 20s. They're the most bloody goddamn compliant ones who were around. Jesus, why is it that people like Gemma O'Doherty and John Waters and Dave Cullinan, all of these ones, we're the rebels? Rowan Croft, we're the bad guys now. We're the punks. The kids in their late teens and early 20s are the most conformist I've ever come across. It's mind-blowing. I even saw it when I was a teacher. 11 years of secondary teaching were quite eye-opening for me. There were always the kids in schools who thought for themselves. Never think that they'll go away. They won't go away. There will always be those free thinkers in schools. They're free thinkers at the age of 11. And they carry it all the way up to 6th year. They will always be there. But, for example, now we look at Poblaskol na Sáin and Baldoyle and how they promoted Black Lives Matter. And RTE, of course RTE rode in on that one. That was a disgrace. That was the politicisation. That the board of management and principal of that school should be sacked for that, for promoting Black Lives Matter. And then it being, of course, promoted on RTE. Because what they're doing is they're bringing politics into a school environment. The school environment needs to be neutral. It needs to be neutral of all politics, whether you're far right or far left or whatever. A school environment is for kids to go in and to get ready for their junior cert and their leaving cert primarily. But no. Poblaskol na Sáin decided to go off their rocker and promote Black Lives Matter. Why did they do that? Because I'll tell you why. Speaking as an experienced secondary teacher, because Poblaskol na Sáin has a coward of a principal. That's why. Poblaskol na Sáin has a coward of a principal who backed down to bullying from a certain minority in the school who probably came along to him or her, I don't know who they are, and said, Black Lives Matter, we have to do this in the school, blah, 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 blah. Any conscientious principal would have said, take your politics outside of the grounds of this school. That would have been the correct and appropriate thing to do. But no, the principal caved. And that was the biggest takeaway I got from 11 years of secondary teaching. An awful lot of school principals are cowards. They back down to vociferous parents who come out with bullshit all the time, where I'd be saying to them, if you don't like how we do it in the school, take them somewhere else or educate at home. You have a constitutional right to educate at home, do it. But if you're in our school, you fit in with our ethos. No. This is, again, it's the cowardice and the mediocrity. Cowardice and mediocrity, because the people who promote Black Lives Matter are inherently mediocre. If you had any talent or any originality, you wouldn't be latching onto a slogan here and crowd losers like Black Lives Matter. Criminals, Black Lives Matter are in the US anyway. I'm not accusing their supporters, and don't be sued. I'm not accusing their supporters in Ireland of being criminals. There's no evidence to suggest that. I'm suggesting that there are two groups involved in Black Lives Matter here. There are chancers and there are cowards. So Aon O'Riordan, our local TD, promotes Black Lives Matter. Has he actually seen what Black Lives Matter has done in America? Oh, no. Aon O'Riordan also promoted removing To Kill a Mockingbird from the English language course. He's not fit to be a public representative. I don't want that man as my TD. I taught To Kill a Mockingbird. As an English teacher, I taught To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a brilliant, I would go to say it's a brilliant novel. It has flaws as a piece of literature. It's not... I'd give it 7 out of 10 because the book warms up later on. It's very verbose at the start. It's quite difficult to teach second years to keep their attention span on at the start of it. But it is, it's a very meritable novel. It has a lot of merit, To Kill a Mockingbird. But I've waffled a lot now, but this is really about the far right and who the far right are supposed to be. It's a lie to suggest that Ireland has a problem with the far right. We don't have a problem with the far right. We have a problem with the far left. We've also got a problem with our mainstream media, particularly RTE and the Irish Times. I am a little bit tired of being called a racist all the time. I'm a little bit tired of being patronised by people in woke NGOs. That's one of the biggest rackets in this country, south of the banks. is the NGO lobby. 5 billion a year we squander on NGOs. What do these NGOs do? For the most part, these NGOs are propagating far-left political correctness. So, for example, one of the continuous things that the NGOs bang on about is how racist all the rest of us are. What they're actually doing is they're fomenting civil unrest with our taxes. That's cancerous. That's like a cancer in society. We, the taxpayers, are paying grossly over-subsidised, lavish, profligate NGOs to undermine our society. And this is all because of people don't have the courage to speak out about it. And that is the thing about so many on the far right. Or whatever. I don't like that term. I'm not going to actually buy the label. The alternative conservative lobby, if you want to call us that. Many of the techniques used by those who could be broadly lumped into the alternative conservative lobby are wrong. Gemma O'Doherty and John Waters went about a court case earlier this year. At least they did it. I recognise the fact that they did take on the system. They just did it wrongly. If you put sugar in the engine of a car, don't be surprised if it goes wrong. But at least they did it. They were ridiculed at the time. Of course they were ridiculed, but that pair don't care. I will commend them for that. They don't care about being ridiculed. And this is one of the defining features of all of us out in the alt-con lobby here. We don't care about being ridiculed. We've had it for years. Literally years. We've had it for years. You know, but we called it correctly with COVID-19. We called it correctly with the masks. We called it correctly with the fact that Varadkar's a crook. We called it correctly with the fact that RTE tells lies. Just to reiterate my old point about RTE telling lies. In 2019, Varadkar smeared 4 whistleblowing doctors in Waterford Hospital who were speaking out with great courage, fair play to them. They were whistleblowing about malpractice in the mortuary of Waterford University Hospital. Varadkar called them liars. He was condemned for it, although RTE stayed silent. He was condemned for calling them liars, and over the space of about 5 days he tried to backtrack. Now, he did a Varadkar backtrack. And then it culminated in him making a speech, I presume in the Dáil, in which he apologised if it had seemed that he had smeared the whistleblowing doctors. And then RTE News that on Saturday said that Varadkar had issued an unconditional apology. He had not issued an unconditional apology. He had done gaslighting. That was not an apology. I apologise if it seems. I apologise if it seems. That's not an apology. So any conscientious journalist would have been turning the screws heavier on him after that Saturday. Instead, RTE said Varadkar apologised. He did not apologise. RTE tells lies. That, for me, was my final red pill moment with RTE. I can never forgive them for that. This country has a problem with how we treat whistleblowers. It's a very serious problem how we treat whistleblowers. Martin Feely being one of the most prominent recent examples of it. The Waterford doctors being last year's example. It appears to be a particular characteristic of the Republic of Ireland that whistleblowers are persecuted. Martin McCabe. It's, you know... Or, sorry, I beg your pardon. Maurice McCabe. My mistake. I was mixing him up with Martin Feely. Maurice McCabe is a whistleblower. That man was very nearly killed for it. How we treat whistleblowers in this country is an outrage. And then for RTE to row in telling lies about Varadkar that he'd made an apology. He did not make an apology. Varadkar has never, ever apologised for anything he has ever done. Not once. Nor does he intend to, as long as he has this pliant, bootlicking, woke media to back him up with everything he does. But that was unforgivable, what he did to those doctors in Waterford. Then they wonder why there's this group of people out here on the fringes, sitting at home, you know, in their parents' home, talking into a microphone. Oh yeah, we're the big threat, aren't we? So, at least the paradigm has shifted somewhat. At least the paradigm has shifted. And people are beginning to question things. I mean, I don't mean us, we questioned it for the past 20 years, but I mean a broader inchoate mass of people is saying, well, how many people do you know have died of COVID-19? Do you see all the people dropping on the streets? Do you see, you do see all the masks littering the streets, yes. So by my refusal to wear a mask, I'm actually not contributing to the littering problem. Always doing my bit for society, am I?